Hi everybody, it's David from Doctors of Running, and today we have a pretty fun comparison video. We're taking a look at two of the maximal stack height shoes on the market. We've got the Adidas Prime X, Adizero Prime X, and the New Balance SC Trainer. Now both of these shoes are beyond the IAAF regulations, or not IAAF anymore, World Athletics regulations for stack height with racing in terms to elite racing and individuals who have to have their shoes checked before competing. However, for those that are in the recreational population, it's totally fine. They won't be doing shoe checks on you. But taking a look at specs here on the Adizero Prime X, we've got 50 millimeters of stack in the heel and 40 millimeters of stack in the forefoot. Very high up shoe, full Light Strike Pro midsole. We have the carbon infused energy rods that also go through the platform and a full Continental outsole that wraps around the forefoot and the heel here. So that's that for the Prime X. Spec wise for the New Balance SC Trainer, we've got 47 millimeters of stack height in the heel, and we've got 39 millimeters of stack in the forefoot. So 8 millimeter drop in the SC Trainer, 10 millimeter drop in the Prime X. Now these shoes have fairly similar specifications. They both use new generation materials, fuel cell in the SC Trainer, Light Strike Pro in the Prime X, but the ride is vastly different. And when we take a look at the weight, I have 9.1 ounces on the Prime X. In my men's 9.5, and I have 10.7 ounces in my 9.5 on the SC Trainer. So this shoe's a little bit heavier compared to the Prime X, and the Prime X is still in the Adizero line. I'm going to start off with the Prime X as far as our comparisons and contrasts. Comparisons and similarities, both of these shoes, very high stack, plenty of cushion, very soft and bouncy rides from both of these shoes. Now, when we take a look at what we mean by soft, this foam on Fuel Cell and on Light Strike Pro has quite a bit, not necessarily resilience coming all the way back, but it has a very good amount of compression and decompresses quite a bit and gives you a sensation of softness under your foot while you're landing on it. There's a couple things that make this SC Trainer a little bit firmer, which I don't know if I would fully classify it as a soft shoe, but it would be a maximalist cushioned shoe still nonetheless. But with the Prime X, you have a little bit more of a narrow platform through the midfoot, much more aggressive geometry as far as getting onto that forefoot. You have a sharp toe spring, and then it has a little bit of that posterior lateral bevel, not quite as dramatic as the Adizero Adios Pro 2, but still a similar design configuration. It does have the medial cutout through that distal midfoot going into the forefoot. Really gives you a sense of a quick kind of pronation moment where you really like load onto the forefoot and then you really explode off of those rods when you come through the forefoot right here. So this shoe is very responsive for the stack height. Do not, it would be a shame to not talk about that. This is a shoe that is still in the Adizero line. I feel like I can turn over in the Prime X, where I have a little bit of a harder time in the SC Trainer. With the Prime X, very responsive underfoot, very quick feeling. However, the Light Strike Pro foam is very soft, and the energy rods don't seem to give you that much stability inherently. It gives you a little bit of rigidity when you're popping off, and there is that plastic kind of plate underneath the forefoot there as well. From the forefoot forward, the shoe feels great. It's more so from the heel through the midfoot. There is a little bit of instability, which most people have read about by now. For those that don't have a problem with it, that's great. For me, I do like running fast in this shoe, especially if I know I'm going to be on road surfaces only. This is a shoe that really moves. It can move really quick and keep a lot of fatigue off of the legs. It's a fun, very bouncy shoe and likes to turn it up a little bit on the pace. We're talking like marathon, half marathon type pacing, but it can be a nice training companion or a racing shoe if your mechanics suit the shoe well enough. But those that have a little bit of midfoot instability might have some trouble through that region, especially as you transition from the heel through the midfoot. Forefoot on, I mean, you've got a wide platform, solid base, the shoe feels great, and you really pop off the forefoot. You do have the cellar mesh upper, very light, very breathable. I mean, the thing's translucent. You can see through it. Lacing locks down pretty well throughout. I haven't had too many problems as far as the Prime X goes on that front. With the New Balance SC Trainer, this feels a little bit more like a full package as a training shoe. Now this shoe has a much more, let's say, rocker profile, where this one, it has a gentle rocker in the heel, but it really relies a lot on that bounce and responsiveness off of the forefoot. It does have a pretty sharp toe spring. With the SC Trainer, you're taking a look at a heel bevel through here and a toe spring that's decently sharp up front. You have the energy arc plate where it's kind of shaped a little bit like an inverted U. You do have a little piece here of durable rubber to help with a little bit of abrasion on the plate so it doesn't crack or break. You do have that deep midline groove that runs from the heel right underneath the calcaneus there and goes all the way up the midline, just about to the middle aspect of the forefoot before you toe off. The fuel cell midsole is soft, but that plate is noticeable and it does firm up the ride quite a bit. You do have a decently full contact outsole, having rubber both on the medial and lateral aspects of the heel running up the midline of the shoe, as well as the medial and lateral aspects of the forefoot, ultimately up to toe off right here. Lockdown is good. It still has a little bit of that performance-esque lockdown to it. However, it is much more training oriented. The upper is a little bit more comfortable and plush with that knit tongue right here on the SC Trainer. This is a shoe, being at 10.7 ounces, I really don't turn over in this shoe much. It is quite a bit of shoe to try and run fast in, but for my easy days, for my long runs, something where you're just wanting something that gets you to roll off a little bit and you want some of those new generation materials to hopefully attenuate some of those forces and decrease some of the fatigue on your legs, the SC Trainer works really well. And I have actually been able to run on some runnable trails in this shoe as well. I feel a little bit more stable on my feet, and I can take this for almost anywhere I want to go as far as daily training goes. Runnable trail, decently well groomed, or bluff trails, things like that I've been okay on. I wouldn't take this in technical areas or moderately technical areas. I think it'd be a little dicey, but overall the shoe feels much more stable than its stack height alludes you to. You think 47 millimeters of stack with fuel cell midsole, you think it's going to be a little wonky. It actually is done really well, and you have a nice wide platform and you just kind of roll right through. So very happy with both of these shoes. They're just very different experiences. The Prime X, very bouncy, responsive. I can pretty much take this all the way down to 10K pace if I really want to. The only thing is, once you get going in this shoe, it's kind of hard to turn or navigate terrain a little bit. So if you have sharp turns, this is a shoe that's a little bit dicey in when I'm doing workouts and things like that, longer than a few minutes. But if I'm doing shorter intervals and I'm just kind of popping off, or doing kind of like a up-tempo controlled tempo run or a long run or something like that, the Prime X will still work pretty well. But I don't really like the Prime X at slower paces. I did have a little bit of ankle instability in this shoe, and I did have some soreness both on the medial and lateral aspect of my ankle just from working so hard from a proprioceptive standpoint. For the viewers, proprioception essentially is your joint's awareness of where it is in space. All of our joints have these little receptors in them that give your brain a feedback and information to let you know where that joint is. And the higher up you go and the more disconnect you have between the ground, it's going to be a little bit harder, especially when the shoe doesn't feel quite as grounded and it's soft and it's a little bit unstable. With that said, the shoe still transitions pretty quick, and so when I'm running quicker, it doesn't really matter. It feels really good. But when I'm running slower, I do notice I have a little bit of trouble with the Prime X. SC Trainer, on the other hand, feels very stable underfoot. I can trust this for a lot of my daily miles or easy recovery miles. It can still turn it up a little bit. I can still do some strides in it. It has that bounce and that carbon plate, but this is much more in the daily training realm for me. So that's the comparison here between the Adizero Prime X from Adidas as well as the New Balance SC Trainer. If you like the video, please subscribe. Check us out at Doctors of Running. We're on YouTube. We're on all of our podcast channels, whether it be Spotify and or Apple Podcasts or any other platform. We have pretty much everything under the moon now between social channels, whether it be a LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. So come check us out. And if you like the video, please hit that like button.